So, hi there. This is Suzanne Hanifin, the founder and president of Acument Executive Search. And we're here for another CEO Insights. And I'm so proud and happy to introduce my friend, Adi, who's going to tell us a little bit about what she does, how life is post COVID, pre COVID, and in this whole mess. So, Adi, please introduce yourself and tell us about your business.
Okay, great to be here, Suzanne. My name is Adi Klevit, and I'm the CEO and founder of Business Success Consulting Group. And we specialize in documenting processes and procedures for businesses and implementing management systems.
That is awesome. And we talked prior to this, and you know, I don't think a lot of people really understand what a process engineer is. I know it took me a little while and us knowing each other to really understand. And so as a business owner, I look at gross profit and how to drive revenues. Really, there's two sides to it. It's the top side, which is the sales, or the bottom line, which is about the efficiencies. And so Adi and her team really focus on these efficiencies to drive up gross margins. And again, let's talk a little bit of how you helped companies pre-COVID. And then really, how is that translating to this work at home, this flexibility to keep processes and procedures going? Adi?
Sure. So, pre-COVID, obviously it was more in person. It was going to the businesses, making sure that how can we make it more efficient? What are the processes and procedures that have to be documented in order to make the business more efficient? Post-COVID or during COVID, right? So businesses really had to pivot. So some businesses, we were called in order to document the new processes and procedures after they pivot, or help them create those new processes and procedures for the pivoting of the business. Other ones were for documenting the processes and procedures for working from home, because that's a big shift. I guess that's part of the pivot, right? But it's not just pivoting the product or service, but it's also how they do it. And then also to have very smooth onboarding, because with the entire situation, a lot of companies went through some personnel changes, right? And I'm sure that you place people in companies, it's a shift in terms of the hiring, a shift in terms of the personnel. So maybe some had to be let go and now they're rehiring or hiring somebody else. And the onboarding process is very important in order to make it a very smooth transition, and also the training of new employees.
Yeah, and you've worked with really big companies and also really small companies. How has that process of implementing, this how people are working, has it really been affecting all sizes, or do you think that smaller companies are more nimble? What are you seeing there?
I think it affects everyone. It's really like, that saying that we're all in it together. I mean, it really affects everyone. I haven't seen anyone that it didn't affect them. Some companies, it affects them for the better. They're doing really well. Like I have a client, for instance, that they just almost double in size because they're involved in online sales. So that was definitely a shift. I have a client that has a construction company and they had to pivot, they have to shift. It's definitely affected their business. Some departments of the business are doing less, some of them are actually doing more. So it was really that nimbleness, the ability to shift, the ability to pivot, the ability to change. It's huge. But I also saw, and I'm sure you saw it too, it's also the mindset of the owners, of the CEOs, of the leaders, right? Because I can have two clients from the same industry in the same environment, and one of them is doing really well in terms of like pivoting and shifting and doing new things, and the other one might not be doing as well because they didn't move fast enough to do that, or the mindset was, well, it's hard, it can be done, etc. So there is that element to it as well.
Well, and like I said, we talked previously to this, and your business is growing and booming because you don't have all that travel time, and you can actually spend more time working with your clients, even though you're not face to face. Right. We've seen a lot of that sales-minded businesses are doing very successful, right now. So
Right.
I would love to ask you more on tips and tricks. You know, the whole purpose of this is to educate others, teach them things that they never thought of. So what have you learned? I mean, we're now, what, 6 months into this?
I know, right? It's almost, we're going there. Yes. So, the main thing that I learned is how to organize my team remotely and how to help my clients organize their teams remotely. And I learned so much about different tools that exist out there to automate things that we are doing and to really make sure that our communication, our internal communication is streamlined. So we are in communication with each other in the team, although we're all working remotely from our homes, right? So that's key. It's really duplicating the physical environment or the ability to go and talk to each other to the virtual settings, right? Because if you work next to somebody, you will walk to their desk and talk to them. You're not going to start a Zoom call to ask every question, right? But if you start texting them or if you start getting on the phone, it's also very disrupting because in person you can see what they're doing, but maybe they're in a call with a client or maybe they're in the middle of something. So you don't want to interrupt that either. So one of the key things is creating those communication lines, like having internally communicating via some kind of a messenger, whether it's Teams, Slack, whatever you're using, but using that as a communication channel to communicate internally and building it correctly. And then also creating processes and procedures and also policies around correct communication internally.
So what, can I ask you, what do
Yeah,
you
of course.
guys use?
We use Slack for internal communication. Do you use that?
No, we tend to use Teams, Microsoft
Yeah.
Teams. That's where we do all of our collaboration in. But I do find it a little clunky. We've used Slack for external communications. So when you say it's built outright, what did you mean by that?
Say it again. I didn't get the last question.
Yeah, so I thought you said, it's communication is so important if you build it out right.
Right.
Yeah, so dive deeper. What does that mean?
It means building the channels correctly, because I use Teams externally with some clients that use Teams, so I will be on their Teams account as a guest, right? Because that's how we communicate. So I'm very familiar with both platforms. And there are others out there, right? Those are not the only ones. But it is, what I've seen is that, let's say in the channel, so if everybody puts their comments in the general, then it just becomes very, it's clutter, you miss communications, right? So that's why you have to build the channels correctly and educate people. That's where the process is very important in terms of writing, okay, so this channel is for this particular purpose, right? So we have different channels. This is what we communicate in each one. For instance, you can have a sales channel and it can be linked into your CRM. It can be like data from your CRM can go directly into your sales channel. So whomever needs to know about the sales, they can see any changes in status on some things on the CRM, etc. So it's on the sales channel. You can have a business development channel. You can have whatever your delivery is, in terms of like for you, it would be like the hiring, the placing, the placement can be a channel, right? So it deals directly with candidates, questions about it or any comments or anything that need to be done. So you have that on that particular channel. Then you have to have some kind of a channel where people have ideas, right? We all have bright ideas. And instead of putting it in the day-to-day communication, you can have it in that particular channel. You can call it like a think tank, right? Or bright idea or the water cooler, whatever it is. And then you can put your ideas there and they can park there. And then whenever somebody has time, they can go back in there and comment on it or talk about it. Or it can be like maybe you assign a specific time during the week where you go there and you do that. So that's an example of building those channels correctly and utilizing them correctly. So you have to monitor it as well, right? Because what I've seen also is that people will start creating like these mini channels where they, let's say in Slack, I can invite you and let's say Karen to talk to me internally. So now we're starting this group chat, just the three of us, but really that chat should have gone to somewhere else, some other channel that has other people involved, for instance. So you have to just make sure that you put it on the correct line so it doesn't jam.
And I think you said it beautifully earlier. It's about creating those processes so then you can train people So then they have a place to go back and go, oh, I have this great idea. Where does this go? And here is this process of saying, this is where it goes, who's responsible for what.
Right.
And you've actually truly helped me, because I think we do too much in general, and then things get lost because it's like, oh God, there's so much.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
so much.
General should be just general, like, you know, the landscaper is coming, so don't park your car there, right? I mean, that's a general communication. Or, you know, there is an office meeting at 5:30, here's the Zoom link, or whatever it is, but it's really general, right? But if it's specific, it should go on the specific channels.
No, this has helped me greatly. So thank you for that. Yeah. So you mentioned other tools that I really wanted to bring up. I love this whole idea of the right channel, the right people, they're responsible for it. But then you also mentioned emails, because I tell you, I think we deal probably 80% of our time in emails, and it's getting a little overboard. So what tools and tricks do you have for that?
So I actually implemented the zero inbox policy. You know, it's like I have zero emails in my inbox. It's amazing. It's so freeing. And I'll tell you how I do it. So first of all, I want to go over the different systems that you have to have in the business, right? In organizing. So you have to have some kind of a task manager. Okay. So that can be inside your CRM, if you have a good CRM that you can assign tasks. Or I use Asana. Some of my clients use Monday.com. So any task management system, you have to have that. That's essential in order to get to a zero inbox, because I'll teach you what to do with your emails, right? So you have to have a task management system. You have a place where you take notes. So I use OneNote. I mean, you know, people use Evernote. I mean, there are a lot of tools out there. Again, I'm not biased for one tool. I mean, I use some, and I'm a firm believer is decide on a tool and don't start jumping around, because yeah, some of them might be better than others, have better functions, etc. But you have to concentrate on one and build it and utilize all the functions, right? So I use OneNote for my notes. So I said notes, note-taking, task management, CRM, calendar, and a document, a document management system. So you can do the Google Doc, you can do OneDrive, you can have Dropbox, but whatever it is, you have a place where you can put your documents that is centralized that everybody can use. And some companies, I know they can use it on their own drive. They have their own drive where they store it. So now if you have this entire system, the email, you can look at it as the gate. I mean, it's basically the gateway. It's like you open the gate and here's the communication floods in. All right, so you have your email. Now you have to organize it into the different aspects of it. So, but I use what's called SaneBox. It's sane, like being sane, SANE box. And what that does, it automatically sorts your emails. So it takes out the newsletters. It takes out all your subscriptions. And you might think, well, I'm not subscribing to anything. Maybe I subscribe to 5 things. Suzanne, it's amazing. When I do that, I get like 50 newsletters a day going into my news. It's called Sane News. Like all my newsletters are sorted out in a folder, and I can see all of them at once, and I can see what I want to read. And then I archive, delete, store it for later, whatever it is. Because we get those subscriptions, whether we think about it or not. You know, you buy something and then it goes in there, you know, you all of a sudden subscribing to that particular newsletter. Or I mean, I like getting those newsletters, very informative. I always learn from my colleagues, right? But I don't want them to come at random times to my inbox, because it's distracting. The other thing is that you can prioritize using SaneBox, whether you want to use it immediately, you want it in your inbox, or you want it in what's called a Sane Later, which is a different folder where you can look at it later. So some things, like for instance, if I get a notification from a client that I know I can do later, I already programmed it so I can see it later. But if I get a communication from a client that I have to see right away, it goes into my inbox. So that way your inbox is really just the communication from your clients. It's not any internal communication, because the internal communication is on Slack. It's also on our task management system. So in my case, it's Asana. So when we set tasks, we actually communicate about each one of those tasks inside of Asana. So we do not, so let's say, for instance, we have a task. Let's say we are a marketing agency and we have a task to complete a blog, write a blog. and we're both collaborating on it. So instead of sending emails back and forth or text, or even in Slack, it's not really the place to go back and forth on that particular target. So in Asana, we said, okay, complete the blog. And then there is a place where we can actually have a communication about that particular task. And we can upload documents. We can take screenshots and put it in there. And one of the things that I start implementing is also doing videos. So let's say, instead of picking up the phone and I'm asking you, let's say we again both work in a marketing agency and we're collaborating on this blog, instead of picking up the phone and say, Suzanne, what do you think about this and this and that? Instead of that, I can just record a quick video, either using Screencastify or Loom, one of those methods, and I will show you exactly what I'm asking and I will send it to you. You can look at it, and if you want to answer me instead of typing it, you can send me a video back and forth. So that's a very fast method of communication that is still alive. It's still kind of like a live communication, but it doesn't require typing or trying to explain your ideas. I just saw a study that says that when you use a video, it's 6 times faster. We talk 6 times faster than we type. So it takes a lot of, it definitely saves you a lot of time. So anyway, so that's the communication there in the task management. So what I do when I receive the email, I decide, am I going to do something about it right now? Or if it's something that I need to do later, I would email myself, I would email that to my task management system, like to Asana as a task. And then I know that I have the task to do later, but I get it out of my inbox. I do not leave emails in my inbox that to do emails. You know, we all have those, right? Oh, I can do it right now. I'll leave it here. I'll get back to it. But what happens is that you probably read it like 10 times throughout the day. Oh yeah, that email that I needed to do something about it, right?
Oh, you've obviously seen my inbox because, I'm a huge file person. So if I'm done, I just file it, bam, bam, bam. But I have to say, it's all those emails that I have to go back to and go, oh, I got this thing I have to do. And you're right. I probably read it 20 times by the time I do it. No, I tell you, Dee, you are my hero. I cannot believe 0 email policy. This is
and I can prove it. I mean, obviously now today is the middle of the day, so I have that, but there will be. And one thing that I learned as well, and I use it with my clients in terms of the efficiency, is we all have just so many minutes in a day, right? And sometimes, I mean, I'm totally guilty of that, and I'm better, much, much better, because I'm implementing what I'm about to tell you. But it will be a little bit insane to think that if we have 480 minutes in an 8-hour day to schedule 960 minutes of tasks, and then you get to the end of the day and nothing gets accomplished. I mean, especially when you're working at home, it's so frustrating. If you have kids that you have to homeschool at the same time, we're just talking about that, right? Or if you get up for 5 minutes and you start doing the laundry, you can get sucked into so many other things. And then if you don't feel accomplished, then you go, okay, so why even try? Let me go do other things, right? I mean, that's what I see, that people get distracted. So you have to really plan your day so you don't get distracted. So you have your time blocks. I'm a huge fan of time blocking, but you have to do it sanely. You can't block 5 tasks if each one of them will take an hour in a 2-hour period. It's just not going to happen. So I use the method of putting my day, like all the actions in my day, and I really quantify it in terms of like how many minutes will it take me. And then I block my calendar accordingly, and then I get things done. And I know that when I'm setting that time of the 2 hours uninterrupted, like deep work, I will turn off all my notifications. I will close my door. I would not answer, like I even turn off my phone completely or put it in the living room, so I don't have to I don't have the temptation to even touch it. And that is huge in terms of the entire process of being efficient.
Now, I think your tips and trades and learnings is so valuable. And Adi, we're going to put all of your contact information at the beginning of this video, and we're going to put it all at the end, because I tell you, it sounds like something that Acument could truly value from. A little bit more organization, help us work smarter, not harder.
Right.
And so if again, I can't speak more highly of Adi as a person. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Suzanne.